Welcome everyone. We'll start with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. So I've chosen a sutta today from the Connected Discourses of the Buddha. It's from the Connected Discourses on the aggregates. It's called Gratification. And I think that I wanted to mention before we started that it's the suttas are really important to use as contemplation for practice. And these, I have 3 suttas chosen, and these actually relate to the Four Noble Truths and the cause of suffering and the way to escape from suffering. So we'll look at these suttas with that in mind, and also not only what I would like to emphasize, not only what we need to abandon in order to relieve ourselves from suffering, but also what to cultivate. So I will share. This is what we learn in kindergarten, to share. How did we get there instead? Okay.
This one.
All right. Okay, so
you could either share and then switch tabs, or go over here and switch tabs and then share.
I don't know how to get over here.
Just click. Just click.
It's not.
Oh, okay. Oh, because this is a pop-up.
Okay, so sorry about
There's
that.
always technical, isn't there?
So then we have to stop the share. Sorry about that. And then we need to go over and get to what I wanted to actually share. Okay, here we are.
Take 2.
All right. And share.
Yep.
There we are. Okay, so this is asada, is the Pali word for gratification. And the sutta, you can see here, if you want to look it up yourself later, if you have a hardbound copy of the Samyutta Nikaya, you would look up SN 2226, and you can also find this yourself on Sutta Central. And Sutta Central is really lovely in that it has the Pali, and there's a Pali word lookup also. So this is at Sawati, and if you just there's just a speaker, and they don't refer it to another monastic. We assume it's the Lord Buddha speaking. If it would be at Sawati, and the Venerable Mahamoggallana was with a group of people, and so on, you'd know it was Mahamoggallana. But if there's no one mentioned, no other monastic mentioned, then the assumption is that it's the Buddha. So the Buddha is addressing the mendicants. And then when you see bhikkhus, he's usually addressing, it may be a large assembly of bhikkhus, but there may be bhikkhunis, there may be lay people as well attending. But in the tradition at that time, they would address senior most. At that time. So include yourself. Somebody also recommended, if you see the word monks, just think of yourself as a monk and the Buddha is speaking to you. Or a mendicant. we're all dependent on the earth for our existence. So we're all mendicants. Mendicants, before my awakening, when I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening, I thought, what's the gratification, the drawback, and the escape when it comes to form? So form, this is rupa, rupasa. But in this case, because it's in the section on the aggregates, we're talking about the body, the physical body. And Bhante Bodhi has some different way of expressing some of these elements.
Before my enlightenment, while I was still a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me, what is the gratification? What is the danger? What is the escape in the case of form? So we're same on that one.
Adina is the danger or the disadvantage or the drawback. And so Bhante Sujato chose drawback, and Bhante Bodhi chose danger. And danger makes it sound like more urgent, like, oh, well, the drawback, I can put up with that, right? But the danger sounds like, oh, I really need to figure out how to escape. Nisarana is a escape. So then we have the 5 aggregates here. So he's talking about what is the gratification, the drawback, and the escape when it comes to form, when it comes to feeling, that's Vedana, Vedanaya, and that's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral felt experience. I like that. It describes actually the felt experience. It's not emotion. It's a very, I want to use the word visceral, but like if you touch something really hot, that's unpleasant, and you pull back. If you taste something delicious, then immediately there's a pleasant feeling. So that's Vedana, and then the neutral, you wouldn't pay too much attention to. So then choices, this is how Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it differently. Bhante Sujato, Sankara, he says choices, and you see that's there in this word list of translations. I like volitional formation. Is that how Bhante Bodhi translates it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Intention for volitional formation, choice, karmic or karmic activity. So this is these impulse, like okay, so with my body, I could put the khandhas together. We're building it up here. I see something, and I have a memory of it being pleasant, right? It had, in the past, it was pleasant. Oh, we skip perception. So there's a perception of something as very pleasant, like as some pleasing. It's pleasing, like some delicious pastry or something is pleasing. So then there's this volition of wanting to get it. How can I get it? So then there's that karmic activity of, am I doing it in a wholesome way? Well, it's pleasant to have enough food to eat and eat the right food, and every so often have a little treat or something like that. But am I obsessed? Is this like is it the volition like over the top? So this is something to consider. And then consciousness, and that's vijnana. And that is knowing, understanding, but consciousness is that all 6 sense gates. So it's the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind consciousness. And when it's in the aggregates, it's all 6. So then it occurred to me, the pleasure and happiness that arise from form, this is the gratification. That form is impermanent, suffering, and perishable. This is the drawback. Removing and giving up desire and greed for form, this is the escape. How does Bhikkhu Bodhi?
The pleasure and joy that arises in dependence on form, or many of them. This is the gratification in form. That form is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger in form. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for form. This is the escape from form.
And then the same pattern for all the rest of the five. I mean, yeah, the remaining four of the five aggregates. The pleasure and happiness that arise from feeling, perception, choices or volitional formations, and consciousness. This is the gratification. So there is the as a living organism, to know what's harmful and what's beneficial. This element of pleasure, it's being pleasing, is helpful. We taste something and it tastes foul, and then we think, oh no, that's not good. But here we're looking at the Four Noble Truths, actually. There is gratification, and then the fact that it's impermanent, because we keep wanting more and more and more. We think we're going to get some kind of satisfaction. So we're looking at the cause of suffering is that seeking the gratification. So that would be the second noble truth. And the understanding, we need to understand where suffering comes from. Understanding suffering is the first, actually, because that's our task with the first noble truth. There is suffering, and we have to understand where it's coming from, and then seeking, that's seeking. And then this is a third, removing and giving up desire and greed for form. This is the escape for all of the aggregates. The pleasure and happiness that arises from feeling. So this is what we're seeking. We're seeking that pleasant feeling, actually, that gratification. And then the perception, again, it feeds into that. Since I had that pleasant experience in the past, my perception is this is pleasurable. My perception is this is what's going to gratify me. And I'm always seeking gratification. And that's the volition. I'm choosing to behave in a particular way. There's and then the consciousness at the six sense spaces. Then that's that the contact that we have at each of those six sense spaces that where feeling arises from. So these all work, the five khandhas all work together. And they can work together for our benefit, and they can also work for our continuation of suffering for ourselves. So like I was saying, this is cessation of suffering, removing and giving up desire and greed for consciousness. This is the escape. So that's the contact we're seeking gratification with the contact at those six sense bases. As long as I didn't truly understand these five grasping aggregates, gratification, drawback, and escape, in this way, for what they are, I didn't announce my supreme perfect awakening in this world with its gods, maras, divinities, its population, with its ascetics and Brahmins, gods and humans. But when I truly did understand these 5 aggregates, grasping aggregates, gratification, drawback, and escape, in this way, for what they are, I announce my supreme perfect awakening in the world with its gods, Maras, and divinities, its population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its gods and humans.
It's ellipsed a little bit, but it's basically the same.
Basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so last night we chanted the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and he was talking about the 4 Noble Truths in this very way, that as long as he didn't comprehend the 4 Noble Truths, so this is like looking at things as they are, looking at things according to reality, seeing things, understanding things accordance with reality, and he's kind of using a little bit different modalities. Like this is looking at the gratification, danger, and escape, or drawback and escape, or looking at dukkha, the cause of dukkha, the cessation of dukkha, and the path, and understanding that. So it's like kind of like this is like focusing on some elements, but in the commentaries it points out that in order to really fully understand the gratification and the danger, and to give up the cause of the danger, to give up craving, you have to be working with all 8 of the Noble Eightfold factors in the path. So these two tie together really well. So the knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there is no more future lives.
Unshakable is my liberation of mind. This is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Mhm.
So I was going to look at the next one as well. And here, this is a lovely thing with Sutta Central. I can just go to the next. You can see that. Okay. Yeah, great. And so this is the second in the gratification teachings in this section. There's more. If you go to Samyutta Nikaya, it'll talk about the sense gates in this same way.
Yeah, that's in the 35, 13, 14, 15. And if you go back further, the other direction in the Samyutta to the 14, you'll get it applied to the elements at 1431. And then if you hop over to the Anguttara Nikaya 3.104, it says, I went in search of the world's gratification. And so it basically applies that you see this kind of application of mind to explore and tease it apart by way of how is it feel beneficial, and what is the distress accompanied, and then the dropping of the distress and the dropping of the clinging to the gratification. You'll find it in all of the Nikayas. Examples. The Majjhima Nikaya, you'll get, if you go to the Majjhima 13, then it will tease out each one of these things in much, much more detail.
Oh, and then also it's Majjhima Nikaya number 75, Magandhya. The Buddha speaks about the gratification danger and the rising and passing gratification.
Oh,
and
yeah,
there's a
really good-
pentad too, as well as
yeah.
so
the origin.
origin and the
Mhm.
so
and 109.
so
So
this is a recurring theme, the gratification, danger, and the escape. So yeah, so you'll encounter this if you're a sutta
aficionado.
yeah, enthusiast, aficionado. So this is number 2 at Sawati, mendicants. I went in search of form's gratification, and I found it. So he was living a very luxurious life in his, when he was growing up in youth and royalty, and so he was able to seek this gratification with a lot of, as a wealthy son of a royalty. So we found it. So we went in search. I've seen clearly with wisdom the full extent of form's gratification. I went in search of form's drawback. So when he left the palace, then he was starting to look at the prop. Well, actually, even before he started to understand the impermanence of this physical form and sickness, aging, and death. The danger, the dinawa. See, this is a danger, the disadvantage, and this is a search, paryasana is there. And I found it. I've clearly seen with wisdom the full extent of form's drawback. So this is an important thing when we're examining things for ourselves. We're developing wisdom. I mean, we can read these teachings and they sound really powerful, but we need to look for ourselves in order to develop the wisdom. I went in search of form's escape, and I found it. I've seen clearly with wisdom the full extent of form's escape. So that's very interesting. How do we escape from form? It's just like sounding like you escape form itself. And this is like no more rebirth, I believe. I went in search of gratification of feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness, and I found it. I've clearly seen with wisdom the full extent of consciousness's gratification. And like I said earlier, this is at the sixth sense basis, consciousness. I went in search of the drawback, and that's the fact that it's impermanent, and we're going to keep searching for it again and again and again and be disappointed again and again and again. And I found it. I've clearly seen with wisdom the full extent of consciousness's drawback or danger, the adinawa, danger, disadvantage, drawback. I went in search of consciousness's escape, and I found it. I've clearly seen with wisdom the full extent of consciousness's escape. As long as I didn't truly understand these five grasping aggregates, gratification, drawback, and escape, for what they are, I didn't announce my supreme perfect awakening. So you hear this expression, things as they are. So understanding things in accordance to reality, how things actually are. And then it's not just being complacent about it. You go, oh, how do I look at this with wisdom? How do I understand this with wisdom? It's not liberating if we just kind of go, oh, this is how it is, oh. Kind of accept it in this kind of complacent way. It's more like, oh, okay. This is how the world of samsara is. What can I learn from it? How can I approach it with understanding? How can I approach it with compassion for myself and for others? Do you have something there?
I think it adds a little bit with Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the gratification in form or in each of them or consciousness extends. Whatever danger there is in form that I discovered, I've clearly seen with wisdom just how far the danger in form extends. Is that wording of just how far it extends,
Yeah.
and just how far the escape from form extends. So we're talking lifetimes here.
Yes,
And
yes.
we're also just how far the gratification extends. We realize when we start to see the impermanence of it, it's like, whoa, that gratification's really limited.
Well, but it's also we're under the illusion that to
Yes.
get more is what's going to satisfy us, and so it's just kind of endlessly seeking that.
Yes.
The there's the two sides of that. Thank you for
Absolutely.
pointing that one
Mhm.
aspect of it. It is limited, but
And I keep chasing it.
we keep chasing it.
Yeah.
Well, the moments are limited, and but
Yes.
the desire for it could be endless, could
Endless.
be so yeah. So
Yes.
so that's why we're chasing lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, the gratification.
Mhm. Yeah, that was the point I wanted with his translation that just sparked for me.
So, but when I did truly understand these five grasping aggregates, the gratification, drawback, and escape for what they are, I announced my supreme perfect awakening. Knowledge and vision arose in me. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now there'll be no more future lives. So this is Nibbana. So this is the third one. And it's very similar pattern, but he's emphasizing some other aspect, some nuance to his. See, it's just like he takes one theme and it's like kind of like turning over every stone and really exploring carefully and looking at every angle. At Sawati, mendicants, if there were no gratification in form, sentient beings wouldn't be aroused by it. And I think Bhante Bodhi says
Enamored with it.
enamored. I like that. That was the first translation I read, and it says like we get enamored by it, aroused by it, enamored by it. Yeah. But since there is gratification in form, sentient beings are aroused or enamored by it. If form had no drawback, sentient beings wouldn't grow disillusioned with it.
Yeah, beings would not experience the revulsion toward it.
So this is okay, nibbida.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is disenchanted, disinterested, disillusioned. I like disillusioned, disinterested, losing interest. So it's kind of like I think of it nibbida as in a little bit like when a child, they have their favorite toy, and this is like they're very enamored with it, and then they outgrow it.
Yeah.
They yeah, uh that's a milder form of it, but I think in order to understand it, it's kind of like you start seeing, oh, it's not what I thought it was. It's not as, fascinating or wonderful or
I don't want a toy car. I want a real car.
then we get into more desires, of course. But yeah, so or yeah, we think of something like there's a beautiful apple in the store and we bring it home and we cut into it. It's actually rotten inside. We realize the whole apple is rotten. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, there's this, sense of the gratification, but I know one Dhamma teacher was talking about, that final, or not the final, let me be clear. That sense of real deep understanding and saying what they saw was, I've been clinging to that. And this real sense of, oh, wow, a clear seeing of the danger, the drawback aspect of in the sense of like, this is what nibbida is. It's a visceral kind of shocked, whoa, of course I'm not going to continue following that. And so the escape, their explanation was, the escape happens because of the clear seeing.
I've also seen the word nibbida translated as becoming weary of something.
Yeah.
And it's particularly with dukkha. When you understand dukkha, you become weary of it. But it's like, but the thing is that the aggregates are described as dukkha. So this is what we're clinging to is actually dukkha.
Mhm.
So, but since form has a drawback, sentient beings do grow disillusioned with it. So this helps us break that endless cycle of grasping, of causing suffering for ourselves, if we can really see things clearly. If there was no escape from form, sentient beings wouldn't escape from it. How does Bhante Bodhi have, what does he have for that one?
If there were no escape from forms, beings would not escape from it.
Yeah, that's pretty clear.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straight.
But there is an escape.
But since there is an escape from form, sentient beings do escape from it.
Yay.
If there was no gratification and feeling, perception, choices, consciousness, sentient beings wouldn't be aroused by it or enamored by it. But since there is gratification and consciousness, see, this is ellipse, so it's getting to the detail of that whole formulation. But since there is gratification and consciousness, sentient beings are aroused by it. If consciousness had no drawback, sentient beings wouldn't grow disillusioned with it. It's interesting, it's like consciousness is seen as one thing, but it's like the sixth sense consciousnesses.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm not a polygrammarian, so vinyasa. Yeah, I guess if it's just considered as an aggregate, well, yeah, like a mass of mosquitoes or something like that is, you think of it as a single thing. Um, if there was no escape from consciousness, sentient beings wouldn't escape from it. But since there is an escape from consciousness, sentient beings do escape from it. So yeah, so they're not talking just about mind consciousness, even though it is it's just a singular.
Yes.
And Bhante Bodhi's. And this is one thing that it's important to consider when we're looking at the teachings when he's talking about consciousness, and it helps understanding what's being said when it all emerges at the mind. Consciousness, all the six sense bases merge at the mind. And that's how we create our experience of the world. But then to take each sense gate separately helps us understand something like the gratification or suffering, or how perception works. As long as sentient beings don't truly understand the five grasping aggregates, gratification, drawback, and escape for what they are, they haven't escaped from this world with its gods, maras, and divinities, its population, with its ascetics and Brahmins, its gods and humans. And they don't live detached, liberated, with a mind free of limits.
As beings, so long as beings have not directly known as they really are the gratification as gratification, the danger as danger. I think that's a good point too. We sometimes in our delusion don't notice that, well, the gratification is simply a gratification. It becomes our identity. The danger is danger, the escape is escape. In the case of these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, they've not escaped from this world with its devas, Mara and Brahma, from this generation with its ascetics and Brahmins, its devas and humans. They have not become detached from it, released from it, nor do they dwell with the mind rid of barriers. That's an interesting Pali word.
Yeah, mind free of limits. See, this is the dwelling, vihar.
It's the Vimaria Dikatena. Yeah.
Unbounded, unrestricted, without limits. So we're limited by this gratification, a search for it. And then this circle of being disappointed and seeking more and more and more and more. Yeah, it's a trap.
It's a trap.
But when sentient beings truly understand these 5 grasping aggregates, gratification, drawback, and escape for what they are, they've escaped from this world with its gods, maras, divinities, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, its gods and humans, and they live detached, liberated, with a mind free of limits. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we can develop, as I was saying, wholesome qualities to help with the mind to become more boundless. Like if we're working with the 4 Brahma Viharas, they're described as boundless and immeasurable. So if we're developing a metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, altruistic joy. It's not a good word for it that I can think of right now. And also equanimity, then the mind becomes, at least for periods of time, and then we don't have to seek, at least on the physical level, gratification. We're going to have a happiness that's not like based on gratification. And also the opposite of greed or the seeking of the gratification is contentment. So it's freedom. Freedom from desire is contentment. So this is something that we can work with until we're completely liberated. We can find more happiness in our lives, that it's not based on this endless search for gratification. So we'll offer this for your reflection. And those that are here live, we're gonna go off YouTube. We're gonna close.
Let's do the stop sharing.
They will stop share and then
unlive, and then we'll just have space for conversation.
Why don't we close with the homage to the triple gem? Well, if you have an image of the Buddha to bow to, you're welcome to turn towards it. Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sangha Sangho Sangham Namami. So welcome to stay on. We'll go out of, thank you for everyone in the YouTube.